Hello, friends, and welcome to Art, Creativity, and Wellbeing. This is the wrapping up of season 3 of the Art, Creativity, and Wellbeing newsletter. Um, and it's episode 10 of this season. And it's interesting because in this season, this is when Art, Creativity, and Wellbeing also became a podcast and also ended up merged with my 400 plus episode podcast that's been going for 10 years. And all this content exists together now. And it's so interesting to feel that as the creator. Uh, I've, I've, I've been really enjoying the feelings of, at first I was like, oh, wow, now everyone's going to see everything. Like the newsletter people will see the podcast and hear the podcast, and the podcast people will have access to the newsletter. And, it's one of many, many ways that our lives or my life is in flux right now, and it's good. It's a good. I think it's gotten so buck wild that it's now fun is kind of how I'm thinking about it. Um, and I really would like to bring you a very focused episode today. Focus, like in a podcast sense, is something I'm growing into. So we will see how we do. Um, this is the show where we are always working to inspire you to feel like a creator and to give yourself permission to create and to believe in yourself. That's really what we do here. Welcome to the show. I am Kay Locke Culp, and I am a coach and a creator myself. And you can find everything I do, including a sign up to this newsletter, at klockculp.com. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. So, I am taking you into something really exciting today. I recently, less than a week ago, I accepted my very first ever 5-figure commission. And what this means is that I will be paid $10,000 to create a piece of art. And oh my goodness, I cannot tell you how overjoyed I am. Years and years ago, well, not years and years ago, but about 4 years ago now, a very dear friend of mine, a coaching colleague, an alumnus, I think is what, if he's a guy, that's what he's called. So an alum of the global coach community. Back in my first ever meeting in the global coach community, it happened to be that he and I got talking about art, and I'll remember this forever. He said, he's an Italian guy, and so he said it with this very lovely accent, which just put the emphasis on the I don't know, on the right syllables and idea, I guess. He said, I won't be able to do it in an Italian accent, but he said, the world is full of people who cannot make a living from their art. It's just stupid, is what he said. And I've thought about that so often as I didn't even consider myself an artist then. I grew into that. And just the idea that you could have, like, I grew up with the starving artist convention, you know what I mean? This idea that, like, artists don't make a living from their art, they just die for it because they can't, quote unquote, make a living. And here was a new idea for me, um and it's just been interesting to reflect on along the way. And I think I have some questions to answer. Like, I really want to take you into this. So I'm going to take you into some of the questions that I've been asked about it. And then I have just a little checklist, call it, of how I did it. So if you're looking to create something for yourself in your life, whether it's good feelings or art or income or anything that you'd like to create, here is a kind of a blueprint or a map, I think, that you can follow. I was going to say something else and now it's gone. So I think we'll go right into the questions. um, The first question that I hear, well, actually, a question that I've been asked was, it's not often the first question. I'll do that one next. But a question that I was asked, which I wanted to start with, was like, is this a scam? Like, how can you trust that you will be paid? That you can trust these people? How do you know that you can trust these people? And I just thought that was such an interesting question. I knew I could trust them because we have a great relationship of trust. But the question asker didn't know that. And the question asker is a person in the world who understands that sometimes people are scammed. And the joy of seeing their face relax as I said, oh, it's definitely not a scam. Like there's a lot of trust between this person and I. And I've actually already been paid half. I was paid half up front. Uh, just to see that person just go, oh, that's so good. Like they were worried about me. And yeah, so it was not a scam. Yes, people do pay tens of thousands of dollars for art when it is within their means and when it is important to them. And I think that's where I'll go now. Like because part of this is we didn't start out this person and I uh, intending that there would be a commission. It's interesting because what happened basically was I this is someone that I have gotten to know now over almost a year, and the way that happened was such fun. I seem to have a knack for making visionary friends. And this is one such visionary friend. And when we met, we we met because she said she read about my book in LinkedIn, and she wrote somewhere in the comments of somebody's post about it. She wrote, "I've just bought it, and um, I can't wait to read it." And so this is a book that I wrote last year. I wrote it it was published in June in paperback, and then December in ebook format, and then January in audio format. So now it's available wide in audio everywhere you get your audiobooks and through Amazon for the ebook and the paperback. Anyway, at the time, she said, I bought it and I can't wait to read it. And her bio in LinkedIn had a really intriguing um, bio line that just made me super curious to talk with her. So I just invited a connect conversation, and I would say we've talked every month since then, sometimes more than once a month, because we just really love each other. Like there's a lot of trust, and these visionary friendships make me so happy, and it's fun to get to know someone like this and over time. And so somewhere back in, I believe, early May or late April, when we had one of our conversations, I'm going to call her Elle. Um, and so Elle and I had a conversation back in, I believe it was late April or early May. And I said in that conversation, because so we are moving to Maine. We don't have a home yet, but the painting that I made behind me is basically how I'm thinking of that's where we're going, basically. And we are getting our home ready to sell, to put on the market. Everything that could be in flux kind of is in flux. We've not had a kitchen for 3 weeks, and we probably won't have for another week and a half, just because of the work that is being done here. That's only part of the work. There's so much else so much else going on. And I said, anyway, to Elle, I said, I have decided that I'm not going to accept any more commissions this year. It just, with everything going on, I can't do it. And when I said that, my pastels were packed up. Like I had sort of stopped using them while some of the renovations in our home were going on. And if I look back, I was feeling pretty bummed, because pastels for me they're an outlet. They're a wonderful creative outlet. That painting behind me, which is of the Maine coast, of a lake in Maine, is is made in pastel. So I live with a tendon disorder. That means that I currently have probably about half the hand usage of like a typical person. And if there was a time in 2014 where I had almost no use of my hands at all. So I've really been thrilled with how much I've grown back. It just means that I need to be very conscientious of how much or like what I commit my hand energy to. And I packed up my pastels and everything and put them away, sort of not realizing that pastels are a great outlet for me because they don't have to be super fine motor. I can pick up a piece of chalk and I can swipe it, and I can swipe with, um, and that's how I can make things. And that's what puts me in flow. As much as I love watercolor painting or drawing, those require a little bit more hand energy than sometimes I can bring. So when I was speaking to Elle in late April or early May, I was feeling pretty just resigned, I guess. And I was like, well, okay, I guess this is what we're doing now. And so I said to her, I won't be able to accept any more commissions for this year because of this big move, and it's all crazy. Um and she said, you know what, we're just wrapping up renovating our apartment in New York. Um and we want to put your art on the walls. We really love it, and we would like to put it on the walls. And so we spoke, at that time, I believe we spoke of some of the artwork that I've already got online, some of the things that I've finished, um, and she came back and said, actually, I believe it was when we were talking sort of the next month. So now it's like mid-May. And she said, it's lovely, but it's just not quite right, which, you know, it's not quite right for everyone, and that's okay, right? And then I showed her something that I was working on at that point. So, but at that point, I had realized that like pastels are an important and necessary. Actually, is that true? No, you know what I realized? I stopped midway through this particular. It was a big 2-panel called a diptych painting, and I had actually taken it off the easel and I had set it aside. So it was like propped in our basement somewhere. And I hadn't started painting yet, again with pastels. And so I said to Elle, I said, come on, I picked up my computer, my camera on the computer. I said, come with me. I want to show you this. And I was thinking at the time, perhaps this was a painting that she might enjoy. And she was delighted with it. And until she discovered the size of it, which for me was pretty big. I believe it's 2 panels of like 16 by 20 each. So it would be 40 inches across without the frame, then adding in the frame and etc. And she said, what are the measurements again? So I measured it and let her know. And she said, I thought it was bigger. And so this was just about 2 weeks ago, I think now. And so I messaged her the next morning. I pulled out some other paper that I have. Like, again, I'm finding all this stuff in our basement, which is like such a discombobulated mess. And I pulled out a couple of sheets of it, the biggest paper that I have. And I said, you know what? Like, I could basically replicate that painting on this if you'd like. And she at that point said something like, that sounds interesting, or whatever. And then the next day, I was sort of down. At this point, I had papers propped up and I was looking at the piece that I had made. And I thought to myself, why do people buy commissions? Like, why do people purchase commissions and commission someone to create art for them? And kind of what occurred to me was they don't do it. A commission is about the person themselves. I mean, typically commissions are artists. The price for a commission is greater, by a significant amount for a commission than for like a regular painting, because it's special to the person, right? It's like there's a whole bunch of tailored to fit, custom aspects to a commission. And I thought, why would someone pay for a commission if it was like is someone going to purchase this or want to purchase a painting that is a representative of like what I love? This is of the diptych that we started talking about was like of a place that's really special to me. Um, and so I wrote to Elle and I said, you know, um, what if we did this instead? Like, what if this commission is, um, it's going to hang in your New York apartment. And what if we make it of your beloved coast, New England coast? Where you swim, where you see loons in winter, um, where you just, it's so beloved to you. And then it can be, I was envisioning a triptych, which is 3 paintings, 3 big panels. I said, it can be on the wall in your New York apartment, and it can be basically opposite these beautiful windows with the New York skyline. And, and Elle wrote me back and she said, "Oh, I love this. Yes, please." She said, "Now I want you to come from abundance when you're thinking price." She said, "I want you to basically dream really big." She said, "Think of your new life in Maine, and make this be, you know, a great price, an abundant price that we will pay you for the commission." And I felt that so I just felt that love and that invitation so deeply. And so I did basically. I wrote, I thought about it. I gave it, I don't know, an amount of time, a couple hours maybe. And as I was going through the time, well, fortunately, I happened to have great conversation with an accountability partner that I have, a friend and I who meet every week, um, and just sort of, I don't know, spur each other on, cheer each other on. And I had this great conversation with them in which I brought up that this had happened because it had only happened like an hour before or something. And I came out of that conversation feeling like this was an invitation to really dream big. Elle basically said, "Dream big here, Kay, and like go for it." And so I did. In fact, what I suggested as a price for the painting, or for the paintings, the triptych, was a good bit higher than where we settled. And that was lovely too, because I did it in the right energy. I said, I just was so grateful to someone who could help me envision how much, like the number that I initially put down was the most I could write without actually throwing up. And so, and when it came back, when the response came back of like, "Oh, wow, that is actually more than I was thinking," I was okay too. Like that was done. Elle is a fabulous leader in her own right. So for her to be able to give me the gift of hearing what amounts to basically a refusal, a sort of no thank you, meant that I could um, just see the bigger picture, not feel like I'd been refused or rebuffed or something like that, but instead to just feel so held and loved. And so I wrote back and I said that basically. I said, you know, uh, I'm really grateful to you for helping me envision myself as an artist who could create art that is worth this amount of money. And I really, really, really appreciate that. And then I said in the same email, I said, I've had an idea, and if you're good, let's figure out the price of this later, because I would love to share this idea with you. And basically, I shared a bigger vision for the commission, and really took Elle into what was possible. And and she loved that. She said, "Absolutely, like let's talk, let's let this settle. Let's talk next week. Um, I think this is great." And then when we did speak the following week, and in the meantime, sort of Elle's partner is getting involved. There are pictures of their beloved coastline and the sunsets, or sorry, the sunrises that happen on them, being sent back and forth and commented on. And there's this wonderful flurry of creativity. And then Elle and I spoke last week, less than a week ago now. And, actually, her partner was there too. They happened to be in New York, so they're measuring the wall while I'm, like, watching on Zoom, and they're sort of turning the camera on the laptop around so that I could see the New York skyline, and it was just so this whole process has been so fun and so joyful. And, somewhere in that conversation, Elle said, "I was thinking," she said, "When you first when I first invited you to come from abundance, I was thinking, that 5,000 would, just based on what she understood of my art and you know, that was basically the number in her mind because we do have an idea of value, don't we?" And she said in this conversation just last week, she said, "But now I'm thinking, what if we do 10,000? It feels good, and it's all it's like it's all like made up anyway, right? Like money is a construct." And I was delighted with that. I said, "Oh my goodness, thank you. Like how exciting." And all of this has also been with the instruction from the people who commissioned, like from Elle and her partner. Do this your way, Kay. Like we yes, let's talk about colors. Yes, we're excited to see this vision, of this huge big triptych. The paper that I ended up getting is and that I will use as my favorite paper, and it's 24 by 36 inches each panel. Y'all, I needed to get 2 more easels in order, to make it work. So over the weekend, after we'd agreed on this, after I'd received the first half of my payment, I started figuring out, "Okay, how am I actually gonna do this now?" And so I purchased 2 more easels. There's something really fun about just feeling the universe providing. So I went there's a art store called Blick, happens to be in Providence. Well, Blicks are everywhere, but the one I went to the other day was in Providence, and Providence, Rhode Island, that is. And at first, I couldn't find the easels, and when the lovely young woman who was sort of taking me around the store, she showed me a tiny easel that's also called an H easel, and I was like, "Oh, that's not gonna be big enough. I guess you don't have any." And then just as I was actually making some other purchases because I mean, when you have the opportunity to think big and I started thinking about what are the pastels that I would like to bring home today. So I was in line to pay for those and at the register, and the woman at the register said, "Oh, you didn't find the easels?" And I was like, "No, turns out you don't have any." And so she went back, and there they were. They were just in another corner. So I went home on Friday with both easels, and over the weekend I put them together. I played with some color, sketches, and, I've just had this very, very and I'm receiving photos and sharing, with Elle and her partner, and it's just, like, so amazing to me that this is my life. Right? Like and the fact that they're saying, "Do this your way. We've now agreed upon a color scheme. We understand what you're doing, and we're very excited about it. Like, we don't wanna see it till it's done. Go play. We want you to do this in the most natural way for you, and we're just excited to see the result." I mean, that is an artist's dream, and I am living it. So that's the story, like, if that's the big story about how, this was the opposite of a scam, but instead a really beautiful, trusting relationship, where, there's a commitment. I think that's the other thing, I was reflecting on my walk this morning. There's a wonderful, tarot deck that I use often with clients, not to predict the future, but um, to as a great reflective tool. Tarot cards are wonderful for this. And in this particular deck, it's called the Zen deck. Um, I believe it's called actually its full name is the Zen Osho deck, but it takes into account like Zen thinking, which is to say, um, I am not my thoughts is a kind of a big principle. Like there's always more than one way to look at something, and I can step back from this current of thoughts and take in other information that doesn't come through my thinking brain. And One of the cards is I don't remember the number of it or the suit of it, but the word on it is totality. That's the key word. And the picture is of three trapeze artists, one of whom is about to reach and grab the extended hands of someone as the other person is about to let go of, and to me, they look like women. So as the other person is about to let go of her. And there is a moment of you've got to be full on committed to, everybody does, right? In flow, just ready to grab and extend and reach and let go to make that work. Otherwise, that person in the middle is not going to be happy. Right. And that's the level of commitment that I operate at myself, and that I love to operate at with clients and with apparently with art commissions, because I think so often we hear that, like, um one actually way that I've heard it said to do commissions, and this is nothing against, there are lots of ways to do things, but the way that I had been operating was, I won't take any money up front, and I will tell them that what this is a first right of refusal, rather than, like, what I'm doing now, which is to say, and what I have been doing, which is to say, I would like half up front, please, thank you, and um let's make this the best possible, the most wonderful painting for you that we possibly can, and let's both be totally committed to that result. The other felt, for me personally, a little bit too hesitant, and I am a full out player, um, and I operate in commitment and trust, and totality feels like the merging of those words, commitment and trust. You can just see it in the word totality is how it feels to me. Um, so that's kind of the answer to the first question. And yes, it did take 25 minutes to answer, but I really wanted to take you into this story. So I'm glad that this is how this is unfolding. Um, the other question that I get a lot, that I've gotten a lot, is like, how did you do this? Like, was it word of mouth? Was it like, do you have a website? Um, do you advertise? That I was asked that, and I think those are all really, really interesting questions. So I do not advertise. Um, I do have a website, and I do operate from word of mouth. Right? People hearing about my art is, I think that's how nearly every single commission I've had happened. And the one that did not happen that way is because it was my parents. But others sort of hearing, "Oh, wow," and then being able to see, like, sometimes people will take out their phones and they'll say, "This was the picture she made for us." And then I will hear from those people, right, who are also interested in a commission. And, that is really fun. So, it's word of mouth. I love having a website, both because people can make purchases on the website, which is klockculp.com/art, by the way. Um, and also because people can see if my work is what they'd like, right? Because I don't want the last thing I would want is for someone to commission me and then get the commission and be like, "Oh wow, actually, I didn't know that this was the kind of art that you made. It's not quite right." And that's never happened to me. And I believe the reason that that's never happened to me is because I am all for totality. Like, I really want someone to know what my work is like, and that way, they can choose from a place of knowing that. So I think the website really serves a couple of purposes. One is to help someone understand what my work is like, and then the other is to to help if someone wants to purchase something that I have painted. Right. So that's how I did it. Um, I guess word of mouth technically is, quote, advertising, but I don't pay to have my stuff advertised. And I have found that so much wonderful buck wild stuff happens when you just open yourself up to connections with people, with real humans. And um, I am, it's funny. We there was an electrician here yesterday, and he and I were talking about. He was super in create mode, like he was he was in and out of the house to try and get an outlet positioned on the back deck, and he was, everything was like sort of blasted open and unscrewed and wires everywhere, and he was just so, you could tell that he was just going about it so joyfully. And I had been in a call with my colleagues, with some peers, and then I started creating. So I started making color studies and playing for this particular commission. And I said to him, we sort of ran into each other. There's a lot going on here right now. And I said, I forgot what I came upstairs for. And he laughed. He said, "You're not alone." And I said, "Isn't it funny?" Like I said, sometimes I have a hard time even being able to like talk, like to sort of form words when I'm in create mode. And he laughed and nodded. And this makes me feel like Albert Einstein. That was a trait of his, was that like words didn't come super easily to him at all. And especially I always feel whenever I'm sort of creating and I have to kind of climb back into my thinking brain to like use speech again. Um, I do think about Albert Einstein, but to be honest, I'm not sure if that was the same thing that happened for him, that he like sort of was so into the creative flow that he disengaged the talking part of his brain. But he did, from childhood, he just wasn't, speech came hard to him, is really what he said. And um am in awe of someone who can be so comfortable with their own creativity and also overcome that to be as impactful and resonant as Einstein was in motivating people and in giving speeches and stuff like that, right? It's wicked cool. So anyway, um, that's how I did it. And I have these newsletters. What I've been doing in this season 2, each edition of it, is I've been kind of inviting a creative challenge for you wonderful creators. And so I'm going to take you into kind of the cycle of how this happened, um, as where the way that I view it from the inside. And then I will have a challenge for you. So here we go. How I brought this about, this commission, was, first of all, and this has been for quite a while now, I have been cultivating what I think of as creative enjoyment in solitude. So that means creative enjoyment is when I am enjoying what I'm doing, and it's creative as opposed to consumptive, right? So I'm not watching anything, I'm not reading a book, not that I never do those things, but that's not creative enjoyment as I think of it. Creative enjoyment is anything that I do in solitude that is where I am creating. And sometimes it's creating a feeling. I mean, right? Like if I go for a walk or a hike, there's a wonderful solitude feel that I just, somewhere on my walk, about 3 steps in usually, begin to just radiate joy. And that is very good for creation and creative enjoyment. So a walk, cooking, um, I don't know, solving household challenges like packing, where, because we're getting ready to move. So there's been quite a few like outside of the box challenges that I have not, in 20 years of living in one place, I haven't really had to deal with. So there's been a lot of those. Also, for me, creative enjoyment, it feels like, um, in writing this newsletter, honestly, and in some of the other written things that I've been doing, there's a ton of creative enjoyment in that. And I've learned to not do it if it doesn't feel enjoyable. Like I've learned to really go with the feelings of it. And so this is a kind of creative enjoyment, and so is painting. Painting is like a visit to my original source, and I sort of come out of it just feeling so in flow. It's very similar to coaching. It's honestly very similar to this. Coaching is not done in solitude. That's with another person or a group of people. So I don't think of that in kind of the same category, because creative enjoyment is fulfilling in in a sort of different way. So I love to have a combination of these different ways of feeling fulfilled. And so painting, writing, uh, walking, reflection, journaling is something that I've been, it's limited because of my hand usage. But what that's really meant is I've come up with some creative ways of journaling, basically. And I committed late in 2024 to at least 1 hour a day of creative enjoyment. And somewhere in 2025, early 2025, I upped that to 2 hours. And even then, even before I upped it to at least 2 hours a day, I was already getting many days of the week. I was getting more than 1 hour, more than 2 hours. And I noticed that the more time I spend in creative enjoyment, the better for me. And the result, the creations are really fun and unique and um, surprising to me sometimes. Like it's just really interesting how when you open yourself up, what happens, right? I'm just realizing I forgot to share something that also happened this past weekend. Um, and I'm glad it's coming up now because step one, creative enjoyment. At least I committed to at least 2 hours of creative enjoyment every day. Work yourself up to that if you're gonna try, do the things on this list. Start with 10 days or so, go to 2 hours. You might find that you love it so much that you build that in more. The next one on the list is I asked for this commission. And I mean that it's really funny because if you remember, I said to Elle, uh, I'm not going to take any more commissions this year. And somewhere along the way, she said to her partner, I think we're going to have to convince her to take one more commission this year because her word was persuade. I think we're going to have to persuade her to take one more commission because this painting that she's talking about isn't big enough. So maybe we can convince her to take one more, right? So, and then I started, once I had committed to doing it, then I started thinking about like, how can I make this really wonderful for the commissioner or the person who's, or commissionee, I can't remember which one. How can I make it really wonderful for the receiver of this painting, for the person who's paying for it, in this exchange of value? And so that was when I started saying, like, what do you think about this? And so I wasn't asking, at that point, I was asking a specific person some specific questions, right? But prior to all of that, the way I think of it is I asked kind of the universe, because I did not want to be one of the starving artists. And I didn't want there to be this feeling around it of that, right? I instead, you may remember, or longtime listeners may remember that when I was 19 and actually in the School of Fine Arts at the university that I attended, my figure drawing teacher said to me, "You are not an artist. You should give this up." And in fact, I was talking with my brother the other day. In fact, in addition to that, what he said was, "Why are you here?" And he was pulling at his hair and, we're in the middle of figure drawing class. "Why are you here?" He said to me, "You are not an artist." And my brother said, he said, when he said that, I think what he was really saying was, "Why am I here?" Like, because we were sort of talking about how I don't think that teacher was very happy when he said that to a student, right? And I listened anyway, and I decided I was apparently not an artist, and so it was only it was less than 4 years ago. It was about 3.5 years ago that I decided maybe I could say I'm an artist or not. Like, who gets to decide? Maybe it's me, who gets to decide if I'm an artist. And so I asked in a cosmic sense back when my global coach community friend said, "The world is full of people who cannot make a living off their art. It's just stupid." Um, I asked for something different. Like, I opened myself up to the ability to receive for the value that I was giving. And that is an interesting thing to be able to do. So I think what I would say is there's a couple of books that I found really helpful on this journey, just regarding this particular aspect of this. One of them is called Love Money, Money Loves You, and it's narrated by Money, and it's such a fun book. And the other one is called How to Solve All Your Money Problems Forever. And again, the enthusiasm in these books, because they understand, as do I, that, or the authors understand, as do I now, that money is just a placeholder. It's just fuel. Like, I do not obsess. I don't stop and top off my gas tank at every gas station I pass because I'm afraid that I'm going to not have enough gas or run out of gas or something like that, right? Like, I trust the gauge. I trust that when it's getting a little low, then I'll go to the gas station or whatever. But I don't spend my days worrying about what if I can't get gas, in the way that I used to worry about what if I can't get money, what if I run out of money, and understanding that it's simply the fuel for exchange, or it's the energy of exchange between people, has been wonderful, and um, it's meant building the kind of life that I can just feel free and have fun and serve generously and understand that there's a trust and that my needs are also being met, you know, in the most joyful and appreciative way. It's so fun. So yeah, number 2 is I asked and I opened to the possibility that this could happen, that I could, receive something like this. And um, that's how I did that. That's number 2. Number 3 is I will need to put my glasses back on. Here we go. Oh yeah, I gave and received trust for no reason. And I put big quotes on the for no reason, because I think very often in a business sense, we are taught, or people believe, there's sort of this conventional wisdom that I do not agree with anymore, that like, uh, there's an exchange, not an exchange is the wrong word, that there's a sort of tit for tat. There's a like, bargaining, or from a negative, from a needy or an unhappy place. There is just a feeling that isn't fun and isn't trusting and isn't the energy of money as I've come to know it. So being able to give and receive trust, uh, if I think about that totality card, like, bringing and giving and receiving trust for no reason, um, is part of the way that this happened, right? So first, I was creating in enjoyment. Second, I asked and open to the possibility that something like this might happen without being tied to how it happened. Um, Third, I gave and received trust for no reason, quote unquote. Fourth, I brought leadership and commitment to the process. Um, Years and years ago, when this was a parenting podcast, I shared an idea that parents are leaders. Every parent is a leader in the home. And that was my learning. That was very new learning for me, was that I could be considered a leader in my home. And in fact, I've kind of highlighted something that I don't think I've shared about here in this particular space yet, which is I am creating a new paradigm for leadership with a very dear, very beloved friend, an esteemed colleague. She was just she was just featured in the Wall Street Journal as one of 12 out of 1.6 million marquee who's who recipients, which was such fun to experience that and witness her, her journey with that. And she just does beautiful, beautiful work, as an executive coach, and also, for the women and children of Central Florida, in some really interesting ways. Anyway, her name is Dr. Patricia Berlode, and she, as I say, is a very dear friend. She and I are creating together a new paradigm for leadership called the kind-hearted, purposeful leadership model. And so not only did I bring leadership to this, I brought kind-hearted, purposeful leadership to it. Expressing gratitude when for no reason other than that I was feeling gratitude in my heart, for example, when my initial um the price I suggested was very gently refused, and I brought gratitude for that. I think a past me would have felt so rejected, and however gently the refusal was, and this one just felt grateful, and it created space to keep talking. Um, and bringing that kind of kind-hearted, purposeful leadership feels really good. And then I brought commitment to it, like that totality, right, to this process. So that's number 4. And then number 5 is the same as number 1. I cultivated the daily practice of creative enjoyment. My painting is a daily practice. When I didn't those 2 weeks when I didn't have my pastels, I and I mean, I was the one who put them away, but anyway, when I didn't have them, I suffered. And being able to kind of see that as it was happening, and now I've got this commission has really kind of sparked the creative juices. I've got these 3 easels set up. I've got this awesome paper. I've got some new pastels to play with. Um, as part of asking, I meant to say this before. I think you just don't know how, when you ask, that will be given, how things will be given, or what there will be for you to be open to receiving. So my pastel teacher messaged me and asked me last week. He said, would you enjoy? I've got a student who's retiring from pastels. Would you like some pastels? And there's an easel, etc. And I was like, oh my gosh, sure, thank you. So he and his wife came over on, I believe this was Friday. I had just purchased the big, the studio easels, and there were two. It took both of them 2 trips to bring everything in. Some of my favorite kind, hundreds of pastels, and some of my favorite kinds in in every color you can imagine, and in just a great storage box. Not a studio box, but what's called a plein air box, a plein air easel, which is apparently the industry standard for like going outside. Like it's heavy, so the wind won't blow it over, and it's just this really fun little easel that you kind of sling up with like a, a belt sort of, um, and so much paper, and I mean there must be, I don't even know, like untold riches of pastels and paper. And one of the papers, there's a dozen sheets that are, I believe they're 16 by 20. They're big, of a paper that I've only ever heard about called Wallace. This particular paper is called Wallace Belgian Mist. And like it's a storied paper that people miss and love. And one of my pastel teachers is this woman named Karen Margulis. She's got a great Patreon. If you're in Patreon and you're interested in pastels, she uh, she sometimes will find a scrap of Wallace and she'll use it. And I'm sitting here and I'm like holding Wallace Belgian Mist, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to try this paper because it's been given to me. Like I had to sort of. It took me the weekend to like process this incredible, and it happened. All of these beautiful pastels and all of this paper, and particularly in this case, the pastels arrived like just so I'm using some of the pastels to make the triptych, the big commission. And it's like, you can't make this stuff up. It's just so incredible. And I've been feeling, just another tarot card reference as we're wrapping up. I've been feeling like, so for some reason, for some reason, I frequently, if I'm doing tarot for myself, if I'm going to, do an exercise or do a spread for myself, um, I find that I frequently pull a card called the Fool. Now, they're pulled randomly, like I don't know what I'm going to be pulling. And the Fool is an image of a jester, somebody dressed as a jester. In one case, in the decks that I use, 2 decks in particular. So in one, they're sort of joyfully jumping off a cliff with like all of their toys around them, and the toys become the creative elements, you know, in tarot. But in this moment, they're not tools, they're toys. And in the other deck that I have, um, the fool is holding a rose and again, joyfully bounding off a cliff. Like they have no idea where they're landing. They're just so happy to be in flow and going. And I've been thinking about that a lot because that is a message that apparently I I have needed to hear. And that's how I'm feeling now. Is like the fool. I have jumped off the cliff. I am in flow. And cultivating the daily practice of creative enjoyment is the mechanism by which, like the sort of practical mechanism by which I can create these good feelings. And so it is both the start of this process and it's the end of this process. And it is my invitation for you. So, um, this is your creative challenge this week. If you dare, give yourself an hour's creative enjoyment. Try and do it every day. I mean, be with grace, right? Like if you can't do it every day, I've been cultivating this, in even 2 hours now for many months, and there are some there's there's only a few of them, but there's some days where I just do not get my full 2 hours of creative enjoyment, and uh, you know, it's not for perfection; it's for well-being, is how I think of it. So be bold and give yourself the permission to start with an hour of creative enjoyment every day. And after you do that for a week, see how you feel. And after you do it for maybe a couple weeks, up it to 2 hours. And if you feel like it, up it to 3. You may find that you're enjoying it so much that you have already, I remember in January on a creative retreat I was still only doing one at that point. And I would spend like 14 hours in creative enjoyment, and it was awesome. So anything is possible when we allow it to be. I think that's where I'm really going to wrap up. When we cultivate enjoyment, when we are open to possibilities, when we bring trust for no reason except that it's how we really feel in our hearts, when we bring leadership and commitment to the process, and when we cultivate enjoyment as a daily practice, anything is possible. Your best, most wildest, funnest dreams are possible. And I'm living proof. If I can do this, anyone can do it. I promise. Um, and that's where we're going to leave it today. Thank you so much for being here. I would really love to hear if you decide to take the challenge, what that's like, and message me if this lands in your inbox, or share in the comments, like, what are you doing for creative enjoyment, and how is it going? And solidarity, if it's tricky, I get it. I'm just wishing you lots of enjoyment and love. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next time for another exciting edition of Art, Creativity, and Wellbeing. I don't even know what it's going to be. My plan is it will be next week, but I don't know what it's going to be yet. So we'll see. Lots of love to you. Thank you so much for being along on this journey with me, and we will talk soon. Bye.